Have you ever found yourself in a place that felt safe, but deep down, you knew it wasn't where you were meant to be? Have you ever dressed the part, smiled for the crowd, said all the right things, but still felt out of place? Today's message is for those who have tried to survive by blending in, for those who have lowered their standard just to make it work, for those who know they are anointed but have been living undercover. David was called to be king, but in 1 Samuel 27, we find him aligning with the enemy. He is wearing the uniform of a soldier in the Philistine army, speaking their language, fighting their battles. But there is a problem. He was never called to fight for them. You can dress like a soldier, but if God has called you to reign, nothing else will satisfy. Survival will push you into strange places. And David said in his heart, "Now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines, and Saul would despair of me to seek me any more in any part of Israel. So I shall escape out of his hand." Then David arose and went over with the 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Maok, king of Gath. So David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household, and David with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's widow. It was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. Then David said to Achish, "If I have now found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?" So Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. 1 Samuel 27 verse 1 to 7. David was tired. Saul was hunting him. The promise of kingship felt far away. So David made a decision out of fear, not faith. He fled to Gath, the land of the Philistines, Israel's enemy. He sought safety with Achish, the king of Gath. He blended in, doing raids, reporting to Achish, pretending to be loyal. Fear will always tempt you to settle for survival, but survival is not the same as destiny. Sometimes the pressure to make life work will make you take jobs, enter relationships, or adopt identities that were never part of God's plan for you. What have you worn just to get by? What spaces have you entered that felt safer than trusting God's process? You can fit in and still be rejected. Then the Philistines gathered together all their armies at Aphek, and the Israelites encamped by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the loss of the Philistines passed in review by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed in review at the rear with Achish. Then the princes of the Philistines said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?" And Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the son of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me these days or these years? And to this day I have found no fault in him since he defected to me." But the princes of the Philistines were angry with him. So the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Make this fellow return, that he may go back to the place which you have appointed for him. And do not let him go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he reconcile himself to his master, if not with the heads of these men? It is not David of whom they sang to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said to him, Surely, as the Lord lives, you have been upright, and your going out and your coming in with me in the army is good in my sight. For to this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming to me. Nevertheless, the laws do not favor you. Therefore, return now and go in peace, that you may not displease the laws of the Philistines. So David said to Achish, But what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant as long as I have been with you, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king? Then Achish answered and said to David, I know that you are as good in my sight as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to the battle. Now therefore, rise early in the morning with your master's servants who have come with you. And as soon as you are up early in the morning and have light, depart. So David and his men rose early to depart in the morning, to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. 1 Samuel 29 verse 1 to 11. In this chapter, David has so blended in that Achish trusts him completely. He's about to go to war against Israel, the very people he's been anointed to lead. It is not David, who has been with me these days or these years. Achish sees him as loyal, but the Philistine commanders are not fooled. Make this fellow return, he may become an adversary in the battle. Even when you blend in, the world can still sense you don't belong. There is something about the favor of God that even your enemies recognize. God's mercy blocked David from a battle he was never meant to fight. Have you ever had a door slam in your face? Maybe that rejection was divine redirection. Maybe God said, not here, not like this, not with them. Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess and Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, had been taken captive. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. 1 Samuel 30 verse 1 to 6. David returns to Ziklag, where he and his men had settled, and finds it burned to the ground. Their families have been taken, their homes destroyed. His own men talk of stoning him. It is David's lowest point. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue this troop? For the first time in a long time, David stops asking Achish and starts asking God. Ziklag was painful, but it was also pivotal. Sometimes God lets things fall apart to bring you back to Him. You can't hear heaven's strategy while wearing the enemy's armor. David's dignity was never in the Philistine camp. He was always a king, just momentarily hiding. God will use the fire to reignite your calling. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, please bring the ephod here to me. And Abiathar brought the ephod to David. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those stayed who were left behind. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind, who were so worried that they could not cross the brook Besor. Then they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David, and they gave him bread and he ate, and they let him drink water. And they gave him a piece of a cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. So when he had eaten, his strength came back to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drank water for 3 days and 3 nights. Then David said to him, To whom do you belong, and where are you from? And he said, I am a young man from Egypt, servant of an Amalekite, and my master left me behind, because 3 days ago I fell sick. We made an invasion of the southern area of the Cherethites, in the territory which belongs to Judah, and of the southern area of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Can you take me down to this troop? So he said, Swear to me by God that you will neither kill me nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to this troop. And when he had brought him down, there they were, spread out over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. Then David attacked them from twilight until the evening of the next day. Not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. So David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And nothing of theirs was lacking, either small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything which they had taken from them. David recovered all. Then David took all the flocks and herds they had driven before those other livestock, and said, This is David's spoil. 1 Samuel 30 verse 7 to 20. After seeking God, David is told, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them and without fail recover all. David leads his men into battle, not for the Philistines, but for his own people. He recovers everything, families, goods, and dignity. This moment leads directly to his ascent to the throne in 2 Samuel. What changed? David remembered who he was. Not a mercenary for Achish, not a wanderer in the wilderness. He was a king anointed by God. You may have blended in. You may have compromised. You may have gotten comfortable in a space that doesn't fit your calling. But God is calling you out of survival mode, out of fear-based decisions, out of the wrong army. You were never meant to fight their battles. You were born to lead his people. You may be dressed like a soldier, but you have been called like a king. Come out of Gath, leave Ziklag behind, step into your throne. God hasn't changed his mind about you. The anointing still stands.